All right, everyone, welcome to Strictly Sports. Today, we're doing our Philadelphia Phillies 2020 season preview, and I'll address this at the beginning of each video. We know that this season might not actually happen, but just to cover our sanity here during this sports hiatus, we just want to talk about something. So, we're going to talk about each Major League Baseball team. We're going to give you one video each day for each Major League Baseball team. This is day two, and of course, that'll span across 30 days. We're also going to be doing daily NBA videos for only the playoff teams, and same thing for hockey. So that'll be covered over the next 32 days with those. And so let's welcome in Stephen Cashin, who's here for our Philadelphia Phillies preview. So we asked you last video how you were doing. So I guess you're doing the same because we're filming these all at the same time. So let's just get started here on the Philadelphia Phillies video and start with their lineup. So right now, it can go a lot of different ways. You could project it however you want. The website I looked at, they had Andrew McCutchen in leadoff spot. He's leading off and playing center field, which is concerning. We'll get to that. JT Realmuto is batting second in this lineup, then Bryce Harper, Rhys Hoskins, the new addition Didi Gregorius, then Gene Segura, Scott Kingery, and then Adam Hazley. And actually, Adam Hazley would be the center fielder. McCutchen would play left. But that's the current projected lineup for the Phillies. And you look at them in this division, Steven, and this is where we'll, now that we've already talked about the Marlins, this is when we can get into kind of more of a grander scheme talk about the entire division. Where do the Phillies sit with all these other teams in the division? Because they have some pieces in this lineup, but can they piece it all together?
Yeah, like you just said, they have pieces that can, catalyze them to be a contender, but then they got some, guys in there that we think, well, if they don't carry their weight, this team could really struggle throughout the season. I think they are like right now on paper, they're just above 500. I mean, you got guys in that rotation, pieces in that lineup that are older. I mean, like Jake Arrieta has kind of fallen off a little bit. Hasn't been the guy we've seen when he was with the Cubs. Not as dominant as of late the last couple of years. They made some good additions this past offseason. You got Didi Gregorius to add some depth to that lineup. Andrew McCutchen, he's been hurt a lot the last few years. I mean, is he going to be a liability? How healthy is he going to be in this lineup? Can he play a whole season? But other than that, I mean, I think they can compete with the other teams in the division. Obviously, they're above the Marlins talent wise. But then you look at the top three in that division. I mean, can you rack up with the Mets? Can you hang with the Braves, who have a powerful offense? And obviously the defending champs, the Nationals. Can you keep up with those teams? Right now, I don't think so. On paper, I don't think that rotation can keep up with them. 1 through 9, I just don't think there's enough pieces there to score enough runs on a daily basis to win you enough games to compete.
Yeah, I mean, can we say it publicly, Stephen? I mean, Zach Wheeler's a little bit overrated.
Yeah. I mean, at the trade deadline last year, everyone was like, we got to get him. We got to sell the house for him. And then I look at a guy who's went 11-8 last year at a 3.96 and 31 games started, 195 strikeouts, which is good, and 195 innings pitched. So he's
He gets
basically averaging.
$118 million over 5 years.
Yeah, he's not. Geez, he's not any. He's not a Max Scherzer. He's not a Garrett Cole. He's not a guy who's going to come out there. If I'm facing him on every fifth day, I'm not going, wow, I'm scared of this guy. Like, you can definitely, there's potential there where you can get hits off him. He's not dominant where he's going to strike you out 10 times in a game. So I think in that contract, in that trade, definitely, definitely not something that you can get go over your head with excitement.
Yeah, it's just like I think the Phillies kind of felt like they needed to add a starter. That was their big problem at the deadline. That was their big problem last year in free agency. They bought Harper, they got him, and they were like, okay, we're done. We think we're good. And they also traded for JT Realmuto last offseason. They're like, okay, we think we're good. We added some guys. And then they thought, maybe we could do this without adding another starting pitcher because at the time you're thinking, okay, Aaron Nola, if he repeats, you have Jake Arrieta and other guys. But then they went through the season and they really struggled at the starting pitching, and they felt like they had to get Zach Wheeler. There really weren't any other options. They couldn't go out and get Garrett Cole because Garrett Cole wasn't interested in going to the Phillies. And other than that, there's really no one else you can get. So I guess from that standpoint, what other choice did they have? Did we expect them to go out and just get Madison Bumgarner or something? Would that have necessarily been better? I don't know. But I just look at that rotation. It's a little weak. I look at that lineup. I say, okay, well, that's good. You have Real Muto, Harper, Hoskins, the 2, 3, 4 projected. Maybe they hit in different spots, but those are the three most dangerous hitters in that lineup. Real Muto, a top three catcher in baseball. We all know who Bryce Harper is, although he might be a little bit overrated himself. I still think he's a tremendous player, but he might be a little bit overrated. And then you have Rhys Hoskins, who hits for a ton of power and gets on base. I think he led the league in walks last year. Rhys Hoskins did. And then, they have Didi Gregorius projected in the 5 hole. I don't know if that's anything you should be confident about. Again, I think we've specified this before. Steven's a Rays fan. I'm a Yankee fan. I got to see a lot of Didi Gregorius over the last few seasons. He did not look the same after he came back from the surgery. He just wasn't hitting with as much. I don't know if it's confidence. His eye wasn't there. He wasn't hitting it like he used to. And then in spring training, before everything got canceled, I believe he was 0 for his first 25 in spring training. So I know it's spring training, but that's a little bit concerning. So I look at this Phillies lineup. I say you have a good three hitters there with some complementary guys like Segura, Kingery, McCutchen to kind of surround the big guys. But is it really all that? I think they need too much to go right to really succeed in the overall season.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you got guys that have been there, and then you have guys at the bottom like 7 and 8, Scott Kingery and Adam Hazley. I mean, guys that have been in the league a couple years. So I mean, you look at their production. Um, Kingery went 258 last year, 474 slug, 19 homers, 55 RBIs, and then Hazley he went 266, 324 on base, 5 homers, 26 RBIs. So two guys that if they can come in their third year, I mean, come in here and produce and put the same numbers up, if not even more, that's a bonus. It's a plus for the Phillies. If they can come out and produce for them, that's a 7-8 spot where they can flip the lineup for McCutchen, Real Muto, and Harper. And if those two guys can come out and get the same numbers, produce more, then you're looking at that's the thing. You just never know in baseball. If those two guys come out great, then 1 through 8 looks a lot better on paper than it did, you know, spring training. But liability, like we said, Didi Gregorius, guy like you said, didn't look the same after his injury last year. The ball wasn't coming off the bat nearly like he wanted it to, in the past few years. I just think mentally when you come off that injury, it's just one of those things where you expect it to come back, but it just your body just doesn't let you. So I looked at the Phillies lineup, and there's some good things there for him, but we'll see if we get this season rolling.
Yeah, one guy we haven't mentioned in the lineup yet, also Gene Segura, and he's a
Hmm.
guy that like does he scare you? He's kind of just a contact guy, not a lot of power. Hitting in that sixth spot, he doesn't necessarily scare me as a run producer. That's why I said maybe you could do this lineup in multiple different ways. Maybe leading off Segura because he's a guy that really just gets base hits, and maybe you lower McCutchen to that 6 hole or 5 hole. But again, this lineup kind of, I mean, you could say it stops at 4, but do you even count McCutchen as one of those hitters? Because he missed an entire year, and even before that, he was not the Andrew McCutchen of old. So I think it's three
Yeah,
hitters and really everyone else in this Phillies lineup.
yeah, like you said, you hit it right on the head. It's like you can dice this lineup, you know, 3, 4, 5 different ways. It's just where are you gonna find these guys' homes? Like I don't think you want to lead McCutchen off. He's not the guy we saw in Pittsburgh. Like he just hasn't been the same guy. Hasn't been that run like the RBI machine that he was a few years back. So I mean, you could put a guy like Segura up there. I mean, a guy who's quick enough, get on base, um, get you some good. He has a good on base percentage. 323, batting 420 slug. I mean, he had 60 RBIs last year, batted 280, but it's just you don't have too many like solid. They have a bunch of 200, 250 hitters. So you look at that. There's not a guy you can lean on and be like, hey, here's our guy. Even Harper, he only batted 260 last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you look at it, it's like, well, where do we go? What's our direction? So you can dice it up, many different ways. once they get going, it's in your first 20 games of the major league season. That's when you start to get your consistency and you find out where guys are comfortable. Do you want to bat lead off? Are you our cleanup hitter? And go from there. So we'll see. But that's what the biggest question mark for this team is where are guys going to fall into place throughout the season?
100%. And then you also look at Alec Baum. He's a third base prospect for them in the minor leagues. He's probably their best hitting prospect right now. He's someone that could come into the big league level. And we were talking about it last night. This is a guy, if he enters and could be the guy that he's been in the minor leagues, that could be the X factor there. That could be the extra bat that might propel them.
Yeah, he's a guy who's in Double A right now. They have him listed as a first baseman. He can play two positions, which is great. And in today's league, the more positions, the better. Guys get hurt, fall out of place. We can throw you two or three different spots. But he's 6'5", 225 pounds. I mean, the guy who
Whew.
really he's a big dude. I mean, like we talked about last night, a guy who can really flip the switch for this Phillies team. I mean, he's got a 518 slug last year with three teams in the minors, 378 on base percentage, and 475 at bats. So he's getting a lot of reps in the minors, batting 305 last year,
Yeah,
21
21
homers,
homers. Yeah.
80 RBIs, and drew 57 walks. So you look at it, this guy has a sample size. The numbers don't lie. So definitely a guy. If they get the season started, I would say if things are going sideways for them in the lineup, look for him to get called up. I mean, his estimated time to the big leagues, they said, is 2020. So he's definitely right there, and they're just waiting for the right time to get him up there.
Yeah, because you could easily slide him into this lineup. You could just, because Scott Kingery can play a lot of different positions. You could throw Kingery out to center field, which he played a lot of last year, and sit Hazley, and that's all you have to do. So I see it as a pretty simple fix if Baum ever does need to come up.
Yeah, there's not too much, manicuring you have to do for that guy. He's major league ready, and all you got to do is throw one guy out of the lineup, put him on the bench, throw him in there. And plus two in baseball, it's a quick fuse. If it goes sideways fast and you're 10, 15 games under 500, let's say, if it gets to that point, or if you're 7 or 8 games out of the division and you're looking for something to get you going, that's what it could take. And guys and fans, especially Philly fans, if they're not winning games, they're gonna want someone to come
Oh
in
no.
here, someone to look at to get them going. And Alec Boehm is definitely a guy that put a star next to his name if you're a Philly fan, and very exciting things to come for them.
Hey, and what a perfect name for a hitter. I mean, Alec Baum. It's just setting up the puns when he hits his first big
Yeah,
league homer.
the marketing team will be all over that if he catches fire.
Yeah, for sure. And so now we look at the rest of the rotation. We did talk about the first three, but they also have Vince Velasquez and Zach Eflin projected for the 4 and 5 spots. That's where they're shaky. I mean, Vince Velasquez, he has struggled for essentially his entire major league career. He has some nice stuff. He's actually worked out a lot better in the bullpen than he has as a starter, but they really don't even have enough starters to put him out in the pen. And then they have Zach Eflin, who had a pretty decent year last year. So it's just obvious. I think what they need, if they get to the deadline, they're one of those contenders, they're going to have to still get another starting pitcher, and they're going to have to upgrade this bullpen as well. Because even though David Robertson is going to come back at some point from Tommy John, they still don't have very much of a bullpen. Right now, they have Hector Neris as their closer. Then they have Adam Morgan, Sir Anthony Dominguez. You have Nick Pivetta out there. That's not a star-studded bullpen. So that's why we say there's the Phillies, and then there's the other three where you have the Braves, the Nats, and the Mets as the other three teams in this division that you look at, and they're definitely ahead. You look at the Phillies, that's what's separating them is their pitching.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely their Achilles heel. You look at their starting pitching to start off with. It's you have Arrieta, who's probably going to be your one or two. I don't know how they want to shake it down yet, but
It'll
Arrieta,
probably be
Wheeler.
Nola, Wheeler, Arrieta.
Yeah, that's true. So I mean, you look at Nola if he comes out and has a good year like he had last year. He went 12-7, 3.87 ERA, 230 strikeouts. I mean, a guy who's solid number one for them. Arrieta, like I said, has been struggling the last couple of years. Then you got Wheeler there, who you know overhyped expectations. If he can come out and have a better year than last year, lower that ERA, his strikeout numbers are there. Strikeout to walk ratio is really good. And then you got Eflin, who's struggling too. Eflin and Velasquez, I mean, those two guys really struggling for that fourth and fifth spot rotate in the rotation. Not guys you want to lean on and be like, hey, you're going to be my horse and you're going to give me 6, 7 innings and you're going to dominate. And then that bullpen, just I don't see a guy who you can lean on and be like, hey, here's the rock, and this is your inning in like 7, 8, 9 part of the game. But you can have Robertson coming back, but coming back from that Tommy John surgery, you just never know what you're going to get. That arm, the confidence isn't there. You've been sitting for almost a whole year. The rehab is intense. So you're not the same when you were fully healthy and you're throwing every day.
And he's in his mid-30s now too.
Yeah, exactly. So he's not that. If you're younger and you can come out and have that surgery and be perfectly fine, but the older you get, the harder it is for your body to recover and really push yourself to be the same pitcher you're when you were developing.
Yeah, and I know David Robertson, from watching the Yankees for years, and he's a guy that he gets in there, and you're really confident that he can get out of a jam. But you kind of saw him go. He didn't look as dominant as he used to be in his last year with the Yankees. Then he pitches only a little bit with the Phillies, gets Tommy John. So you're thinking, is the David Robertson even still there anymore? And I hope it is, because he's a really great pitcher and he's had a great career. And you hate to see some careers end in a bad way. But I do think if he comes back, he might be the guy that they rely on. So
Yeah,
looking at
that'll
the
be
rest,
definitely
yeah.
their that'll definitely be their piece right there. Like that's the one guy you could lean on, put a star next to if he comes back, and then work around that. But until that point, there's some figuring out to do for the Phillies.
And then if you look at the rest of their farm system, they really don't have a lot of guys that are going to be at the big league level right now. They do have Spencer Howard, who's a very legit pitcher in their minor league system. So we talk about pitching depth. That's one starting pitcher that could come up at some point. One guy, I don't know if you remember this guy, Steven. I think he was drafted number one overall a few years back, but Mickey Moniak may be just a complete bust. He has not had a great minor league track record. I mean, you're talking about a guy who was the number one overall pick, and he still has not hit the big leagues. Do you know much about Mickey?
Yeah, I got his stats up here right now. I mean, he was highly touted. He was first round. He was first pick of the 2016 amateur draft,
Yeah,
and since being drafted, I mean, there hasn't been anything there. He struggled mightily. I mean, uh, definitely the batting average is he's a 200 hitter. I mean, a guy who now you look at it, he's in Double A now. Definitely not the progression that the Phillies wanted. Um, he batted 252 last year, 303 on base percentage, and slugging was 439 last year. So I mean, he's definitely getting there. But I don't know. I just think right as of right now, where you want to be a first overall pick, it doesn't take 4 or 5 years for you to get going.
no, he should be there at this point. And there's an opening too. I mean, they have a center field opening spot right now because Adam Hazley might be there right now, but he's a placeholder. They don't need him to be there. And speaking as well of the major league lineup, I forgot to mention this now that I'm talking about Hazley, but the Phillies also have Jay Bruce on the bench, who's a guy that the only reason he's not starting is because the Phillies don't want to put McCutchen in center field full time. But that's kind of disappointing when you have to play a guy like Hazley, not really that productive at the plate, and then you have Jay Bruce sitting on your bench who can hit a homer basically on call. So is that kind of disappointing for the Phillies? They can't use a guy like Jay Bruce full time, no DH in the NL.
Yeah, that's what kind of hurts you. I mean, look at the disparity in the American League and then the National League. Like you're robbed of that DH spot. So you got guys who have potential, who are potentially can be put in a lineup. So if you throw them to the AL side, there's an extra spot you can throw in. You can get more reps, twice as many reps as if you were on the National League side. I mean, Bruce is a guy who batted 216 last year. Average doesn't mean much anymore. Like we talked about, 26 homers, 59 RBIs, and 310 at bats. So you look at it, he's a guy who can come up there. I mean, maybe the average isn't there. He's not getting a base hit, every night. But a guy, if you throw in a pitch hitting spot, certain situations, a guy can get one out of the park and drive in a few runs if you get him in a key spot. So that kind of hurts the Phillies there, not having that spot for him to go in every, playing 2 or 3 games, taking a night off, and getting thrown back in there. So, but it's still good for them that they have Bruce on the bench and they can throw him in there and still have that in the mix in the bag. So we'll see. I mean, that definitely a key piece in that lineup. If things go sideways for him, they can throw him in there if guys aren't producing.
All right, so what's the over under here? I mean, we've got a team that I think is going to finish in fourth in the NL East. Let's do the over under on wins though. What do you have, Steven?
I have 84.
You have them projected at 84?
I had the over under 84. My projected record is 82 and 80.
I have them lower. I have them at 78 wins.
It's not. I mean,
I
that's not a bad pick. I mean, because this division's very competitive, like we talked about. So 82 to 84 was generous for me because I think if things go right for them, everything goes perfect, then they can be in the 80 win range. But like I said, if it goes bad early, then you're looking at struggles all year.
and we actually didn't even mention this. Joe Girardi is the manager there now too. Huge shift from Gabe Kapler, who I don't want to be too harsh on the guy, but he came in. He doesn't really look like that much of a tough guy, like a manager that can lead a team to a championship. That's just my view. I just kind of look at him that way. Joe Girardi's a guy though. He's tough. He will hold you accountable. He knows how to win games. He's a World Series champion manager, and as a player, what do you think of Joe Girardi and what he could bring to that clubhouse?
Oh, I like the hire. I mean, like I said, Kapler. I mean, a guy that I mean, he played for the Rays early in his career, and I remember watching him, which was too funny, seeing him go out and make pitching changes. A guy I don't think too many of the players respected. Um, Guy didn't really make a career, too big of a career for himself. So I think when you don't have a big track record in the major leagues, it's a respect thing. Major league ball players, they play for themselves. They want to win, yes, but when you have a guy who's leading your team that really doesn't have that image, the respect isn't there. Guys don't play when things go bad. Guys aren't really responding. You need a coach that's in your face and be like, I've done this before. I've won games. I've won World Series. And Joe Girardi is a guy that comes in, hey, I coached in New York, one of the biggest ball clubs there is. I mean, the criticism is always there all the time. You know it best. Them and the Dodgers, if you're not winning, you're getting an earful from the fans. And
Oh yeah,
he knows exactly how to flip the right switches and knows how to push guys in the right places. And I think he can get some of these young guys going. And so you might not see it this year, but definitely a good manager in there to get them going in the next 2, 3 years and, really, you know, push the gas and get them going.
yeah, and I feel really good for him too because he's one of the people that was negatively affected, and we don't know this definitively, but he very well could have been directly affected by the Astros cheating scandal. He got fired after that 2017 ALCS, and you look at that and you say, a guy who managed for the Yankees for 10 years and was a game away from the World Series, he is as legit as it gets. Phillies fans should be very happy that he is their manager. And that'll do it for this video about the Philadelphia Phillies. Both Steve and Steven, correct me if I'm wrong. I think you probably have them in fourth place as well.
Yeah, I have them finishing above the Marlins. I have in fourth place as of right now. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so we both got them in fourth place. I have them at 78 wins. Steven has them at 82 wins. Tomorrow, you're going to get our New York Mets video and our video about the number 6 seed in the Eastern Conference in the NBA. That'll do it for this episode. I'm Jacob Brown. You're listening to me and Stephen Cashin, and we will see you tomorrow.